The cold darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions. In this vast emptiness, a massive alien ship moved silently through the void. The ship belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, the most powerful force in this part of the galaxy. For 300 years, they had ruled over dozens of worlds and countless alien races. Commander Vexstar stood on the bridge of his ship, the Nexus Prime. His tall, thin body was covered in blue-gray skin that seemed to shimmer under the bridge. Lights. Like all Zephyrians, he had large black eyes that could see far into the darkness of space. His forearms moved gracefully as he worked at his control station. Commander called his scanning officer. "We are picking up something strange in the Kepler sector." Vexstar turned his attention to the main display screen. A small dot appeared on the star map, blinking red to show it was unknown. "What kind of reading are you getting?" "It appears to be a ship, sir, but it does not match anything in our database. The design is completely foreign to us." The commander felt a spark of excitement. In all his years of service, he had rarely encountered truly unknown technology. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered so many worlds that they had samples of almost every type of ship and weapon in the galaxy. "Set course for the object," he ordered. "I want to see this mystery ship for myself." The Nexus Prime changed direction and began moving toward the unknown vessel. As they got closer, the ship's advanced sensors began to gather more information. What they found was puzzling. The alien ship was drifting in space, clearly damaged. Parts of its hull were torn open, and there were no signs of life aboard. Scorch marks covered the metal surface, showing that it had been in a fierce battle. Strange markings were painted on the side of the ship in white letters that read, "U.E.S. Valiant." "What do you think, Commander?" asked his science officer, Dr. Kethrel. The doctor was shorter than most Zephyrians, but his mind was sharp and curious. He had spent his entire life studying alien technology. Vexstar studied the image on the screen. The unknown ship looked crude and primitive compared to Zephyrian vessels, where their ships were smooth and elegant. This one was angular and rough, where they used advanced materials that gleamed like liquid metal. The ship seemed to be made of simple steel and other basic metals. "It looks like it was built by a species that is far behind us in technology," the commander said. "Look at those weapon mounts. They appear to use simple projectile weapons instead of energy beams. And those engines look like they burn chemical fuel." Double quotes, Dr. Kethrel nodded in agreement. The life support systems visible through the hull damage seemed to be mechanical rather than bio-integrated like ours. "This species might be hundreds of years behind our level of development." "Perfect," Vexstar said with satisfaction. "Prepare the tractor beam. We'll bring this ship aboard for study. If there is a new species out there with ships like this, they will be easy to conquer." What the Zephyrians did not know was that 37 humans were still alive inside the seemingly dead ship. Captain Jake Morrison lay still in a hidden compartment deep inside the Valiant's hull. The compartment was so well concealed that it did not show up on any scan or blueprint that the aliens might find. Morrison was a veteran of many space battles. At 45 years old, he had gray streaks in his brown hair and scars on his hands from years of military service. His blue eyes were alert as he listened to the alien voices coming through hidden speakers next to him. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks worked quietly at a concealed control panel. She was younger than the captain, with red hair tied back in a tight ponytail. Her green eyes focused intently on the readings that showed the alien ship approaching. "They're taking the bait," she whispered to Morrison. "Their tractor beam is locking onto us." Morrison nodded. This was exactly what they had hoped would happen. The Valiant had not failed in battle by accident. Everything that had occurred was part of a careful plan that had taken years to develop. On the other side of the hidden chamber, Tactical Officer Ryan Clark monitored the alien ship's scanning attempts. He was a tall man with dark skin and intelligent brown eyes. His job was to make sure the aliens saw exactly what the humans wanted them to see. "Their scans are reading our fake systems perfectly," he reported quietly. "They think our real weapons are just secondary systems. They have no idea what the ship can actually do." The human military had learned long ago that the best way to fight a superior enemy was to make them think you were weak. Every human warship was built with this idea in mind. The real weapons and systems were hidden behind layers of deception and false readings. As the Zephyrian tractor beam pulled the Valiant into the alien ship's cargo bay, Communications Officer Betty Walsh worked at decoding the alien language. She was small and quick, with blonde hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. "I am starting to understand their speech patterns," she whispered. "Give me a few more hours and I should be able to translate most of what they are saying, Captain." Morrison looked around at his hidden crew. These men and women had volunteered for one of the most dangerous missions in human history. They had allowed their ship to be captured so they could study the enemy from the inside. The Valiant settled onto the deck of the alien cargo bay with a soft thud that they could feel through the ship's hull. Morrison heard alien voices coming, closer as boarding teams prepared to enter his ship. "Remember," he whispered to his crew, "no matter what happens, we stay hidden until the time is right. The fate of Earth and all human colonies depends on what we learn here." Outside their hidden chamber, alien footsteps echoed through the corridors of the Valiant. The Zephyrians had no idea that they were walking into a trap that had been planned. By some of the finest military minds Earth had ever produced, the game was about to begin. And the aliens had already made their first mistake by thinking they had captured a primitive enemy ship. Soon they would learn that humans were far more dangerous than they appeared. Dr. Kethrel stepped through the airlock into the human ship with barely hidden excitement. Behind him, a team of Zephyrian scientists followed, carrying scanning equipment and sample containers. This was the moment he had been waiting for. His entire career, the chance to study completely unknown alien technology. The interior of the human ship looked even more primitive than the outside. The walls were made of simple metal plates bolted together. Exposed pipes and cables ran along the ceiling. The lighting came from basic electric bulbs instead of the elegant energy crystals that Zephyrians used. "Look at this construction," Dr. Kethrel said to his assistant, a young scientist named Zephyllon. "They actually use screws and bolts, too. Hold their ship together. Our ships grow their hull from living metal that heals itself when damaged." Zephyllon nodded as he took readings with his scanner. "The atmosphere inside is a simple mixture of nitrogen and oxygen. Very basic compared to our engineered air that provides nutrients directly to our skin." The team moved deeper into the ship, examining everything they found. In what appeared to be the engine room, they discovered massive mechanical devices that burned fuel to create thrust. The Zephyrians were amazed that any species would use such old methods when clean energy was so much more efficient. "Commander Vextar will be pleased," Dr. Kethrel said into his communication device. "This species is even more backward than we first thought. Their technology is at least 500 years behind ours." Hidden in the secret compartments throughout the ship, Captain Morrison and his crew listened to every word the aliens spoke. Communications Officer Betty Walsh had made excellent progress in learning their language. She whispered translations to the others as the aliens talked. "They think our fusion reactor is primitive," she said quietly. "They have no idea it is actually a decoy system. Their real power source is completely hidden from their scans." Engineer Lisa Brooks smiled as she monitored the alien team through concealed cameras. The Zephyrians were looking at exactly what the humans wanted them to see. Every system they examined was designed to appear simple and outdated. The aliens spent hours studying the ship's weapons. They found what they thought were the main guns, large metal tubes that fired explosive shells using chemical propellant. To the Zephyrians, these weapons seemed laughably weak compared to their own energy beams that could cut through any known material. "These projectile weapons would be useless against our shields," Dr. Kethrel reported to Commander Vextar. "Maximum range appears to be only a few thousand kilometers. Our weapons can strike targets across entire solar systems." What the aliens did not realize was that they were looking at the ship's secondary defense systems. The real weapons were hidden behind false walls and disguised as other equipment. The humans had learned to hide their true capabilities from any enemy who might capture their ships. Tactical Officer Ryan Clark watched the aliens examine the fake weapons with satisfaction. His job was to make sure all the deception systems worked perfectly. So far, the plan was going exactly as hoped. The Zephyrian science team moved to the ship's computer systems next. They found what appeared to be simple digital computers that used basic circuits and processors. The aliens were surprised that any spacefaring species would still use such outdated technology. Their computers are so primitive, Cephalon said as he studied the human systems. They still use electricity, flowing through metal wires. We abandoned such methods centuries ago when we learned to use quantum fields for information processing. Dr. Kethrel nodded in agreement. These computers would be helpless against our cyber warfare systems. We could disable their entire fleet without firing a single weapon. The aliens did not know that they were looking at dummy computers designed to fail easily. The ship's real artificial intelligence was hidden so well that the alien scanners could not detect it. This AI was quietly watching everything the aliens did and learning about their technology. Captain Morrison felt a grim satisfaction as he listened to the aliens' confident talk. The Zephyrians were falling into the trap perfectly. They were gathering false information that would lead them to make terrible mistakes. When they tried to attack human colonies, the alien science team spent 2 full days examining the human ship. They cataloged every system they could find and recorded detailed specifications of what they thought were the ship's capabilities. All of this information was sent back to the Zephyrian Military Command for strategic planning. Species will be easy to conquer, Dr. Kethrel reported in his final analysis. Their ships are slow, their weapons are weak, and their defenses are almost non-existent. A single Zephyrian battle group could defeat their entire fleet. Commander Vexstar was pleased with the report. Excellent work, Doctor. Prepare invasion. Plans for their home worlds. With technology this primitive, they will surrender quickly when they see our superior forces. Hidden in the depths of the human ship, Captain Morrison and his crew prepared for the next phase of their mission. They had successfully convinced the aliens that humanity was weak and backward. Now they would wait for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. Chief Engineer Brooks began making subtle preparations to activate the ship's real systems. The adaptive armor plating that looked like simple steel could actually deflect any known energy weapon. The primitive-looking engines could move faster than anything the Zephyrians had ever built. Communications. Officer Walsh continued monitoring. Alien transmissions as word of the primitive human technology spread through the Zephyrian Empire. Military commanders were already repositioning their fleets based on the false intelligence they had received. The trap was set. The aliens had taken the bait completely. Soon they would learn that humans were far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The species that had conquered its own world through centuries of warfare was about to teach the galaxy a lesson about the dangers of underestimating your enemy. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled through superior technology for 300 years. They were about to discover that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not the biggest gun, but the ability to make your enemy think you do not have any guns at all. On the 3rd day of their study, Dr. Kethrel made a decision that would change everything. He stood in the human ship's weapon bay, looking at what he believed were the main guns of this primitive vessel. The large metal tubes seemed crude and simple to his advanced eyes. "We need to understand how these weapons work," he told his team. "Take apart one of these gun systems. I want to see the internal mechanisms." His assistant Cephalon looked uncertain. "Should we not be more careful?" "Doctor, what if there are safety systems we do not understand?" Dr. Kethrel waved away the concern with one of his 4 arms. "What danger could there be from such backward technology? These weapons are probably safer than the tools we use to build our children's toys." The Zephyrian scientists began to remove the outer casing of what they thought was the ship's primary weapon. As they worked, hidden sensors throughout the human ship detected their actions. In the concealed chambers, warning lights began to flash softly. Captain Morrison felt his heart rate increase as he watched the aliens through the secret cameras. "They are about to trigger the first reveal protocol," he whispered to his hidden crew. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks had her hands ready at the hidden control panel. "Should I activate the response sequence?" Morrison nodded. "Do it. Let them see what they are really dealing with." Brooks pressed a series of buttons that had been waiting for this moment. Deep inside the ship's hull, systems that had been dormant for days began to wake up. The real heart of the human warship started to beat. The aliens working on the weapon system suddenly stopped as their scanners began showing impossible readings. The metal casing they had been removing was not simple steel as they had thought. It was a complex composite material that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "Doctor," Cephalon called out in confusion. "The material is changing. It appears to be some kind of living metal that adapts to different conditions." Dr. Kethril rushed over to see what his assistant had found. His large black eyes widened as he watched the human ship's hull begin to transform. What had looked like crude armor plating was revealing itself to be something far more advanced. "This is impossible," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Our scans showed this was primitive construction. How can it be changing?" The answer came as more systems throughout the ship began to activate. The simple electric lights flickered and were replaced by a soft blue glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The exposed pipes and cables that had looked so primitive began to retract into the walls, replaced by smooth surfaces that pulsed with energy. Captain Morrison smiled grimly as he watched the aliens' growing panic. Phase 1 of the revelation is complete. Now they know their scans were wrong. The ship's real computer system came online, and suddenly the aliens found themselves facing technology that was not primitive at all. Holographic displays appeared in the air around them, showing information and symbols they did not recognize. The crude digital computers they had studied were revealed to be nothing more than decoys. "Alert Commander Vexstar immediately," Dr. Kethril ordered, as he backed away from the transforming weapon system. "This ship is not what we thought it was." On the bridge of the Nexus Prime, Commander Vexstar received the emergency communication. With disbelief. "What do you mean the ship is changing? How can a dead vessel suddenly come to life?" "I do not know, Commander," Dr. Kethril replied, his voice shaking with fear and confusion. "Everything we studied was false. This species has technology that rivals or exceeds our own. We've been deceived." The revelation was far from over. As the human ship continued to transform, new systems became visible that the aliens had never imagined. The weapon they had been studying was revealed to be just a minor defense system. The real guns emerged from hidden compartments in the ship's hull. Plasma cannons unfolded from what had appeared to be simple storage areas. Energy weapons that could punch through any known armor took their positions along the ship's sides. Most terrifying of all, devices that seemed to bend space itself around the ship became visible. Chief Engineer Brooks watched the aliens' terror with satisfaction. They thought they were studying a primitive projectile weapon. Now they can see. Our plasma artillery systems. The ship's engines, which had appeared to be simple chemical rockets, began to show their true nature. The real propulsion system used principles that the Zephyrians barely understood. It could move the ship faster than anything in their fleet. Communications Officer Betty Walsh intercepted the panicked messages flying between the alien ship and their command centers. "They are calling for backup," she reported to Captain Morrison. "They finally understand they are in over their heads." The ship's artificial intelligence, which had been hidden from all scans, finally revealed itself. It spoke to the aliens in perfect Zephyrian language, its voice calm and controlled. "Greetings," the AI said through the ship's communication system. "I am the intelligence that guides this vessel. I have been watching you and learning about your technology while you've studied our decoy systems." Dr. Kethril nearly fell backward in shock. "The ship has been watching us, but our scans showed no advanced AI systems." "Your scans showed you exactly what we wanted you to see," the AI replied. "Every reading you took was carefully controlled. Every system you studied was designed to appear primitive while hiding our true capabilities." The full scope of the deception was becoming clear. The aliens realized they had been played from the very beginning. The battle that had damaged the human ship, the convenient way it had been drifting in space, easy capture, all of it had been planned. Commander Vexstar's voice crackled over the communication system, filled with rage and fear. "You have made fools of us. You are still trapped on our ship. Surrender now, or we will destroy you." Captain Morrison finally revealed himself, stepping out of the hidden chamber for the first time since the capture. His human form shocked the aliens, who had never seen his species before. Commander Morrison said calmly, "I think you need to look at your long-range sensors. We are not the ones who are trapped." The aliens rushed to check their instruments and found something that filled them with dread. 3 massive ships had just appeared at the edge of the star system. The vessels were clearly human in design, but they were nothing like the primitive craft the aliens thought they understood. The trap was complete. And the Zephyrians were about to learn the most important lesson of their lives. Commander Vexstar ran through the corridors of his ship as alarm bells rang throughout the Nexus Prime. His forearms moved quickly as he tried to reach the bridge, but his mind was racing even faster. Everything his scientists had told him about the human technology was wrong. Completely wrong. "Report," shouted as he burst onto the bridge. His crew was in chaos, their instruments showing readings that made no sense. "Commander," his tactical officer said with panic in his voice, "the human ship is breaking free from our docking clamps. Our containment systems cannot hold it." On the main screen, Vexstar watched in horror as the human vessel simply pushed through the metal clamps that should have been strong enough to hold any ship. The Valiant moved with smooth power that showed the aliens just how wrong they had been about everything. "The 3 ships at the edge of the system are moving toward us," reported the scanning officer. "They will reach us in less than 1 hour. Commander, these vessels are much larger than anything we expected from this species." Dr. Kethral's voice came over the communication system from inside the human ship. "Commander, you must listen to me. This species is not primitive at all. They have been lying to us from the beginning. Their technology is as advanced as ours. Maybe more so." Vexstar felt his confidence crumbling. For 300 years, the Zephyrian Empire had been the strongest force in the galaxy. They had conquered world after world because they always had better technology than their enemies. Now they faced something they had never encountered before, an enemy who was smarter than they were. "Send an emergency message to High Command," Vexstar ordered. "Tell them we have made contact with a species that uses deception as a weapon. All our intelligence about their capabilities is false." But it was too late for warnings. The Zephyrian military had already begun moving their fleets based on the fake information they had received. Across the Empire, commanders were preparing to fight an enemy they thought was weak and primitive. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant as his ship moved away from the alien vessel. His crew had finally come out of hiding, and they were back at their proper stations. Ship that had seemed dead for 3 days was now fully alive and ready for battle. "Open a channel to the Zephyrian ship," Morrison ordered. Communications Officer Betty Walsh nodded and established the connection. Morrison's image appeared on the main screen of the Nexus Prime. Commander Vexstar stared at the human captain, trying to understand how he had been so completely fooled. "Commander," Vexstar Morrison said calmly, "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Space Force. You have made a serious mistake. By attacking one of our ships and trying to steal our technology." "You deceived us," Vexstar replied, his voice filled with anger and fear. "Your ship appeared to be primitive. Our scans showed outdated technology." Morrison nodded. "Your scans showed exactly what we wanted them to show. Every human military vessel is designed to appear less advanced than it really is. We learned long ago that the best way to defeat a superior enemy is to make them think they are fighting an inferior one." The human captain's words hit Vexstar like a physical blow. The Zephyrian Empire had built their entire military strategy on the idea that they were technologically superior to everyone else. They had never considered that an enemy might be smart enough to hide their true capabilities. "You let us capture your ship on purpose," Vexstar said, finally understanding the full scope of the trap. "Of course we did," Morrison replied. "We needed to learn about your technology and your military plans. We also needed you to study our fake systems so you would make the wrong preparations for war." The 3 human battleships were getting closer, and the Zephyrians could see that these vessels were nothing like the primitive craft they had expected. The ships were sleek and powerful, with weapon systems that defied easy understanding. "Sir," the tactical officer reported to Vexstar, "the approaching human ships are showing energy readings that are off our scales.
Oh.
I do not think our weapons can damage them." Morrison continued his explanation. While you were studying our decoy technology, we were learning everything about your real capabilities. Your shields, your weapons, your faster-than-light drives. We now understand all of it. What do you want from us? Vexter asked, knowing that his ship was completely outmatched. We want you to contact your high command and tell them the truth, Morrison said. Tell them that humanity is not a primitive species that can be easily conquered. Tell them that we are prepared to defend ourselves and our allies. The full disaster of the situation was becoming clear to Vextar. The Zephyrian Empire had already committed most of their military forces to an invasion based on false intelligence. Their fleets were positioned to fight weak enemies with outdated weapons. Instead, they would face advanced human technology that could counter every tactic they had planned. You have doomed my people, Vextar said quietly. Morrison's expression remained calm, but firm. Your people doomed themselves when they decided to attack innocent worlds and enslave other species. We are simply showing you that bullies eventually meet someone stronger than they are. The human battleships had arrived at the edge of weapons range. They held their position, waiting for orders from Captain Morrison. The message was clear. The Zephyrians were surrounded and outgunned. You have one chance to avoid a war, Morrison said. Order your fleets to retreat from all the worlds you have conquered. Free the species you have enslaved. End your empire's expansion, and we will let you return to your home systems in peace. Vextar knew he had no choice. His single ship could not fight 3 human battleships, and his empire's scattered fleets were about to face an enemy they were not prepared to fight. I will send your message to High Command, he said finally, but I do not think they will listen. But they will see this as a challenge to their power. Morrison nodded. Then they will learn the same lesson you have learned today. Sometimes the species that looks weakest is actually the most dangerous. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy through fear and superior technology. Now they faced humanity, a species that had mastered the art of war through centuries of fighting each other. The aliens were about to discover that humans were the most dangerous enemy they had ever faced. The message from Commander Vextar reached the Zephyrian High Command exactly 47 minutes too late. Admiral Creston, the supreme leader of the Empire's military forces, had already given the order for the great invasion to begin. Across 20 star systems, Zephyrian fleets were moving toward human colonies, confident in their easy victory. Admiral Creston read Vextar's warning message with disbelief and anger. The message claimed that the primitive human species was actually advanced and dangerous. To the Admiral, this sounded like the excuse of a commander who had failed in his mission. Impossible, Creston said to his staff officers. We have detailed reports about their technology. Their ships are weak, their weapons are outdated, and their defenses are practically non-existent. Why commanders panic will not change our plans. The Admiral sent back a harsh reply to Vextar, ordering him to complete his mission and stop sending false reports. Then he continued watching as his fleets moved toward what he believed would be an easy conquest. The first battle began. In the Ross system, where 3 Zephyrian battle groups encountered a single human defense fleet, the alien commanders expected to destroy the human ships quickly with their superior energy weapons and advanced shields. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that fought unlike anything they had ever seen. The human ships moved in patterns that seemed impossible, appearing in one place and then instantly moving to another. Their weapons cut through Zephyrian shields as if they were made of paper. Admiral Creston watched the battle reports with growing confusion. His ships were being destroyed by enemies that should not have been able to fight back. The humans were using tactics and technology that were not in any of the intelligence reports. How are they moving so fast? He demanded from his tactical officers. Our reports said their ships were slower than ours. Sir, his communications officer said with fear in his voice. We are receiving surrender requests from Battle, Group 7. They report that half their ships have been destroyed in the first 10 minutes of combat. Similar reports began coming in from other battles across the Empire's territory. Everywhere the Zephyrian fleets attacked, they found human forces that were ready and waiting. The humans seemed to know exactly where the aliens would strike and exactly how to counter their weapons. Captain Morrison watched the battle reports from the bridge of the Valiant with grim satisfaction. The human military had been preparing for this moment for years. Every tactic the Zephyrians used had been studied and countered. The Kepler defense grid is reporting total victory, Communications Officer Betty Walsh announced. The alien fleet has been destroyed or captured. No human ships were lost. Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks looked up from her station. The fake intelligence we gave them is working perfectly. They position their fleets to fight our decoy technology, not our real capabilities. The Zephyrian Empire was learning the hardest lesson of their 300-year history. They had built their power on the belief that superior technology would always win wars. Now they faced an enemy that had superior strategy, and strategy was proving to be more important than technology. Word of the defeat spread quickly through the Empire's territory. Enslaved worlds that had suffered under Zephyrian rule for decades suddenly saw hope. If the mighty Empire could be defeated, then freedom was possible. Rebellions began on dozens of worlds as enslaved species rose up against their masters. The Zephyrian garrison forces, weakened by the withdrawal of ships for the failed invasion, could not control the uprising. Admiral Creston watched his empire falling apart in real time. Battle reports showed defeat after defeat. Rebellion reports showed world after world breaking free from imperial control. In less than a day, 3 centuries of conquest were being undone. "Send a message to all fleet commanders," he ordered desperately. "All forces are to retreat to home systems immediately, abandon the invasion, and return to defensive positions." But the retreat only made things worse. The human fleets pursued. The fleeing Zephyrians, showing mercy to those who surrendered but destroying any ship that continued to fight. The aliens discovered that running from humans is just as dangerous as fighting them. Commander Vextar sat in his ship's command chair as he watched the collapse of everything he had believed in. The Nexus Prime was now under escort by the human battleships. Heading toward a prisoner exchange point, Captain Morrison appeared on his communication screen one final time. "Commander, I want you to understand something important. This war did not have to happen. Your empire chose to attack us, and your empire chose to enslave innocent worlds. We believed we were bringing order to the galaxy," Vextar replied weakly. Morrison shook his head. "You were bringing tyranny. The difference is that order respects freedom, while tyranny destroys it. Humanity learned that lesson through centuries of fighting each other. We hoped we would never have to teach it to anyone else." 6 months later, the Zephyrian Empire no longer existed. The former imperial worlds had joined together with their former slaves to create the Galactic Alliance. Humanity became the founding member and the first among equals in this new organization. The Valiant was retired from active service and turned into a museum. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see the ship that had brought down an empire. Without firing a shot in battle, the hidden chambers and false systems were preserved exactly as they had been during the mission. Captain Morrison stood in the museum's main display hall, looking at a holographic recreation of the events. Children from dozens of different species listened as guides explained how the ship had used intelligence instead of violence to defeat a much larger enemy. The most important lesson Morrison told a group of young visitors is that the strongest weapon is not always the biggest gun. Sometimes the strongest weapon is the ability to make your enemy defeat themselves. In the depths of space, other human ships continued their missions. Each one carried the same hidden systems and false readings that had fooled the Zephyrians. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity not because they were the strongest, but because they were the smartest. The species that had spent thousands of years fighting each other had finally found peace among the stars. But they had also proven that they were ready to fight again if anyone threatened that peace. The galaxy was a safer place because humanity was watching over it. Hidden behind masks of seeming weakness that concealed the most dangerous military force ever created,